Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you for coming. And it's me again doing the service today. So you have to bear and listen to me talk again. But we'll start with Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivashadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vatrubhyascha Kripasindubhyayo Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Yeah, if we could please come a little bit in front. I don't mind. But later maybe more devotees will come. Normally we get, after an hour or so many more come, so it's easier for them to come through the back. And maybe, could someone get a copy of the back of the Gita? Or maybe if you have it on your phone? Yeah, okay, Shresh Prabhu will put it on the screen. Okay, so today we'll be doing chapter 8, verse number 6. So I just channel the invocation to get the blessings to read back. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so is everybody ready? It's chapter 8, verse number 6. So I think I'll start with a word to word first, and then we can read the actual verse. Yam yam. Whatever. Vapi, adore. Smaran, remembering. Bhavam, nature. Jyajati, gives up. Ante, at the end. Kalevaram, this body. Tam tam, similar. Eva, certainly. Eti, gets. Kontiya, O son of Kunti. Sada, always. Tat, that. Bhava, state of being. Bhavitaha, remembering. Yam yam vapi smaranam bhavam. Jajatante kalevaram. Tam tam vilaiti kunteya. Sadatat bhava bhavita. Yam yam vapi smaranam bhavam. Jajatante kalevaram. Tam tam vilaiti kunteya. Sadatat bhava bhavita. Yam yam vapi smaranam bhavam. Jajatante kalevaram. Tam tam vivaiti kunteya. Sadatat bhava bhavita. Yam yam vapi smaranam bhavam. Mataji. Okay. So translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So, should we say it in Western? Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Okay, purport. The process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who at the end of his life quits his body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same transcendental state. This is a point we should note very carefully. How can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, fought of a deer at the end of his life, and so in his next life he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer he remembered his past activities, he had to accept that animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life one lives in a mood of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendentally absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. So translation again, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So this verse here is speaking about, basically about death and the state of being and the consciousness that we have at the time of death. And, you know, is anyone sensitive to death? Yes, well, everybody is sensitive to death, right? But if you bear with me and ride through maybe the first half of this lecture, maybe you might change your perception about death, actually. So, in Mahabharata, like we were just reading, I don't know if everyone is aware, but we've got a reading group on Saturday, so devotees, like it's being hosted by Shresh Prabhu, and many devotees are joining, so if anyone is not part of the group and would like to join, you can please speak to Vasu Shresh Prabhu and get in touch. But we were just reading about Queen Kunti yesterday, and so basically these are the Leelas from the Mahabharata. And in the Mahabharata, there came a point where the Pandavas and Draupadi were exiled for 13 years from their kingdom, and during that time they came to a certain place where there was a lake, and Yudhishthira asked one of his brothers to go and take water from that lake. So I forgot the order, whether it was Nakul. Just dropped dead. Right? So then the brothers couldn't see him coming. So Yudhishthira told someone else, okay, go and check what's going on. Right? So the same thing happened to the second brother. He went there and he drank the water and he dropped down there. So then he said, okay, he sent Bhima and Arjuna together, told them, okay, go and take a look. So again they went and they fell in the same trap, they drank the water as well. And eventually Yudhishthira was a bit worried because he sent all of them and nobody came back. So he thought, okay, he's going to have to go and have a look himself. So he went there and he heard the same voice. Do not take this water before you answer my questions. And Yudhishthira, he was basically the wise one, as a matter of saying, you know. Like he was the king, he had all the characteristics of a king. So he was also very intelligent, and he was also like very great at philosophy and understanding the scriptures and morality and all these things. So he asked, who is it? Show yourself. You know, and it turns out it was a yaksha. A yaksha is basically like a spirit of nature. And he owned this lake. He says, I own this lake. Right? And no one is allowed to take this water. And so basically it came to the fact that if Yudhishthira was able to answer all the questions of that yaksha, then his brothers would come back to life, basically. And then he would be allowed to take water from that lake. So Yudhishthira eventually answered all the questions. There's quite a few questions, I'm not going to go through all of them. But one of the questions that's relevant to us today, he asked Yudhishthira, what is truly amazing in this world? And Yudhishthira replied and he said, the most amazing thing is though humans are mortal, everybody goes about their life as if they are going to be here forever. So, anyone has any thoughts about this? Even though we are all mortal, we live our lives as if we're never going to die. Yeah? So we kind of forget that we have to die, isn't it?
Not today, maybe tomorrow.
Tomorrow. But, you know, we're so busy with our conditioned life. Do you know, since we take birth, we are basically stamped with a religion and identity, and we're given an education, and we are taught this is the system, this is what we have to do, this is the way life is, and you know, we've got to educate ourselves, we've got to give up 20 years of our life to get a degree and then spend another 5 years looking for a job, and then, you know, many like myself end up doing a job that we never dreamt we were going to do. But anyways, so basically this is what life's about, right? We get a qualification, we work and work and work, and then we try to achieve those things. We, you know, the normal routine would be we buy a house, we get a partner, we get married and children, and this is what we are told, you know. And we're so busy doing that, we're so busy working, we're so busy paying our bills, we're so busy keeping the body healthy. Sometimes some people have such a routine in life that it's very hard to spare 5 minutes, isn't it? How many people can relate to this? Like you wake up in the morning and okay, that's it. Yeah? You've got to head to work, you've got to prepare your breakfast. If you have kids, oh my days, it's even it's even more difficult, right? So we don't have time to think. When's the last time anybody actually went around and had a fresh breath of air and, you know, thought like, okay, when springtime, looking at the flowers blossoming, or when's the last time you were under the sky at night and looking at the stars? Anyone? Oh, some nature lovers, right? A couple of people. But this is nice. So if we had time to think, even just by looking at the sky, just an example, if we look at the sky and we look at the stars above our head, right, and we think, okay, each and every one of these stars is actually a planet. So then all of a sudden we start to feel a little bit insignificant. Not only do we feel insignificant, but we also feel like our thoughts got out of the box. So we're starting to think out of the box, right? So this earth is like a tiny little grain of sand in the whole universe. There's so many planets out there. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam it says there's an infinite number of planets. Innumerable, that's what word that's used. It says there are innumerable planets. So when we think about it, we are so engrossed into what we think is important, but in the reality of things, when we look at the bigger picture, is it that important? Do you know there's a whole galaxy out there, there's a whole universe, and we're worried about what's going to happen to our own self amongst billions of people on this earth. We're worried about what's going to happen to me on this little tiny grain of sand that's called the earth. Right? So we're so engrossed into those things that we never really think about, where birth, death, what is the purpose of life? What can we do with this human form of life? So just like in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have the story of Gajendra. Maybe some of you have already heard this story. So Gajendra, he was the king of elephants. And he was the king of elephants in the heavenly planets. Right? So even on earth, how strong is an elephant? Has anyone actually interacted with any of these animals before? With a tiger? Yeah, but elephants are like one of the strongest animals. And now just imagine yourself, this elephant was the king of elephants in the heavenly planets. So how strong was he? So the story goes like Gajendra, he had all his family, he had a herd of elephants, he had so many wives and he had children. And one day they were just like sporting around and they got thirsty, so there was like a beautiful lake in that place and they just thought like they headed to that lake to refresh themselves, have a bath and to drink, basically. Right? And then when they all got into the water, they started splashing water on each other. They were just having fun. So that's life, isn't it? We're with family, we're with friends, we're just having fun. We're not really thinking about anything else. But then all of a sudden, by the will of providence, there was a crocodile living in that lake. And this crocodile got like angry because of the disturbance. So he went and he bit Gajendra's leg. Right? And then that was it. That was a big struggle going on between Vrajendra the elephant and that crocodile, because the crocodile came in the form of death. Right? So they were struggling, and it said sometimes the crocodile was being pulled out of the water, and sometimes the elephant was being pulled in the water. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, sometimes the elephant was being pulled in the water. And in the heavenly planets, according to our time, this fight went on for 1,000 years. Can you believe it? Like after 1,000 years, Gajendra, he eventually realized that he was getting nowhere. He realized he wasn't going to get out of this situation. And then he was extremely afraid. And at that moment, he realized that no one could rescue him from this danger. He accepted his fate, basically. And at that time, it said, at the time of death, everybody, all his friends, all his family, all his children, they were all around him, right? But there was nothing they could do. There was nothing they could do to help him. Because at that time, he was all alone. Right? And that's how it is. No one can help us, right, at the time of death. Everything we have, everything we work so hard for, all the attachment we have, all the family we have, we will eventually leave everything behind at the time of death, right? But for a devotee, we have some knowledge. We are very fortunate, actually, because we have knowledge, transcendental knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita. This is called Raja Vidya, it's the king of knowledge, right? And if you open, there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Deinu Shrina Tadeh, Omanam Yoganam Jara, Tatadeham Jara Praptir, Deras Tatranam Yugati. Those who got a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, I forgot, is it 211? 214, yeah. 213, yeah? So if you check this verse, chapter 2, verse number 13. So it says, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Right? And the purport is absolutely amazing as well. I'm wondering whether we should read the purport because the words of Srila Prabhupada is absolutely amazing. Would you like it? It's on the screen, yeah? Okay. Yeah, so basically what this verse is saying, it's saying that the embodied soul. So first of all, we need to understand that we are not this body. We are actually the soul. So this is the life inside the body. This is what gets the body moving, right? So the body is made of chemicals. That's the difference between a living body and a dead body. Right? It's all made of chemicals. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said the gross body, so we have two bodies. We have a gross body and we have a subtle body. And then inside this, so the jiva is encaged in two bodies, you know. So the gross body is made of 5 elements. It's made of water, fire, air, ether, and what's the fifth one? Air, water, fire, earth, yeah, and ether. Right, so these are the 5 gross elements. Now we can break this down into, like, I don't know, into 500,000 chemical compounds. but this is the essence, you know, these 5 elements. You know, if you go to chemistry, you can break it down and say, okay, in fire there's this, that, you know, 20 elements. In this water there's like another 50 elements or whatsoever. In 50 years when you come back, we'll discover another 20 elements, you know, like that. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the essence is given. This is what the gross body is made of. And then the subtle body, it's made of the intelligence, the mind, and the false ego. Right? So we're not this body. Just like the body is changing. Right? It actually, scientifically, it is proven that every 7 years, not a single cell in our body is the same. Every single cell has been renewed. So after each 7 years, you're a totally different person. Even each cell is new. So that body has already changed. But the consciousness in the body, we stay the same. You know, so in a way I can remember my 12-year-old body, I can remember my 15-year-old body, but, you know, now I've got like a 40-year-old body, but my body, you know, but I am inside this body. And at the time of death, the soul leaves the body, and this is what the actual verse says. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. And if we look in the purport, there's a very important bit. In the purport, Prabhupada says that one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So it says whatever state of being one remembers at the time of death, he will attain without fail. So then we start to figure out what do we understand by the state of being. A life form or transcendental being. Does anyone else have anything to say? What does state of being mean? State of being, is it an emotion? Is it an action? Consciousness. Yeah, consciousness. So whatever state of consciousness, and when we think about it, the things we do and the attractions the attachments that we cultivate throughout our life, these are the things that we are likely to remember at the time of death. So just imagine you're on your deathbed and your whole life just gets played like a reel in slow motion in front of you, right? So what are you going to get captivated by? So you see your whole life just going through. You know, the things that you're doing the most, right? So, yeah, the best moments in life, that's what's going to stick out, right? So if you want, like, in a fraction of a second, you see your whole life go through whatever you've been doing the most, whatever activity you're most attached to, whatever you're doing the most. Say, for example, if you're a runner, right, and when your life flashes in front of you, you see yourself running like 50 times, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a runner, you know. This is what sticks to your head, right? So similarly, if people are attached to, if a husband is attached to his wife, and he thinks of his wife at the time of death, then he gets a female body the next time he takes birth. Similarly, for a wife who's attached to her husband, she thinks of her husband at the time of death, or children, or whatsoever, and she gets a male body, you know. And Srila Prabhupada says that someone who's very lusty, who wants sex enjoyment so many times a day, is better off having another body to accommodate this. Just like pigeons, sparrows, and ducks, we can have sex 20 times a day. You know, so if we like to eat, we can have the body of an elephant. You know, if we like to expose ourselves or whatsoever, then we're better off having the body of a tree. So then we can stand there for 50 years and be like that. So Krishna, he facilitates our desire. So I was thinking about this verse when I was reading, and I was also thinking it's got to do with desires as well. So whatever we desire at the time of death, right, we can basically, this also reflects on the state of being that we are thinking about, right?
Yes. It seems a bit unfair if you get a really, really fantastic life and all of a sudden you think the wrong thing. And so it is, basically.
Yeah, so it seems a little bit unfair, you know, because like we got a good life and we can't enjoy it, right? But Krishna says this world is dukkhalayam shashvatam, which means it is temporary and it is also full of miseries. It's not all bad. I'm going to come to the good part of it. Like I did say, if you write this first half of the lecture, you know, the good bits come after. Yeah. You know, but basically we need to understand that in this planet Earth, everything is temporary, isn't it? But the soul is eternal. Our real self is eternal. And the soul, the nature of the soul, if you read the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the soul is eternal, Satchitananda. The soul is eternal, it's full of knowledge, and it's full of bliss. And the soul cannot be slain. The soul cannot be cut to pieces, the soul cannot be burned, the soul cannot be destroyed. So we are encased in this body, and the illusion is that we think we are this body, right? But this Krishna conscious movement is teaching us how to get out of the illusion that we are this body. So when we realize that we are not this body, and we are eternal, we are full of knowledge and we are full of bliss, and we're only here temporarily. There's billions and billions of planets, and there's so many species of life. And this is not my first birth, and this is not my first death. I've been born so many times. Actually, there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna speaks to Arjuna, and he says, so many times we've been born. I remember all of them, but you don't remember. So he told Arjuna, it's not the first time we've been here. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's saying all the actions that we're doing here, it's like we're chewing the chewed. You know, we're trying to get some pleasure. Like say if you take a chewing gum, the first time you chew it, then it's nice, it's sweet. But then when you keep on chewing and chewing and chewing, what happens? There's no juice left, right? So similarly in this life, we're just trying to get enjoyment. You know, we're trying to get intoxicated, we're trying to do so many things to enjoy, right? And we keep doing it, chasing for that enjoyment, but It's like chewing the chew, but we never really get it. There's always something missing, and what's missing is Krishna. Because without Krishna, we cannot be happy. You know, this is our real identity. We are actually servants of Krishna. We belong in the spiritual world. You know, somehow or the other, we fell down. We came to this planet temporarily, and here we have the way, and the means, and the intelligence to basically go back home, back to Godhead, where we can be eternally happy, eternally in bliss, and in happiness and in knowledge. So there's a nice story by Srila Prabhupada actually regarding this topic. So Srila Prabhupada tells a story about a sage who gives blessings to 4 different types of people. So this sage, first of all, he met a prince. And to that prince, he told him, "You live forever." Does anyone know why? No? Okay, because a prince, he's got all the facilities for sense enjoyment. You know, he can buy anything. So he's got all the facilities to enjoy sinful life. So if he's enjoying sinful life at the time of death, you know, no one knows what kind of karma is accumulated and what's going to happen in his next life, where he's going to be at. So the sage told him, "You live forever. You're enjoying, keep enjoying, and live forever." This is his blessing. Right? And then he met the son of a saintly person. So he met like a brahmachari. And to that brahmachari, he told him, you can die now. And why did he tell him you can die now? Because this brahmachari, he was properly fixed, right? Every day he was waking up 4 o'clock, he would attend the morning program, he would chant his rounds, he would listen to Bhagavatam class, and he was perfectly fixed, following the instructions of his spiritual master. So if he was to die at this moment, he would definitely go back home, back to God, back to Godhead. So that's why he told him, "You can die now." Because later on, we don't know what could happen to him. He could not be a brahmachari anymore. He could, right? So this is the blessing. And then next, this sage, he met a devotee. He met a sadhu. Sadhu means pure devotee, right? And to this pure devotee, he said, "You can die anytime, or you can keep on living. It doesn't make any difference." Right? And then he met a butcher, and to the butcher, he told the butcher, like, "You don't live and don't die." And why did he tell the butcher, "Don't live and don't die"? Yeah. So when he's living a life where, you know, there's so much suffering. Every day he's got to go and do his job and kill all these animals, and there's so much blood and things. It's not really worth living. So don't live and don't die, because if he dies, he's going to have to incur the sinful reactions for all these things that he has done, right? But for the devotee, he said, "You can live if you want, or you can die anytime, it does not matter." So why did he say that? Anybody has any idea? Okay, I get someone else. And then I'll come back to you. Yeah, does anyone have anything to say? Why do you think he told a devotee? A devotee, you can live if you want. You can die if you want. It doesn't matter. A devotee lives forever. Yes. And what else?
Devotee is with Krishna, not here or...
Wow. Yeah, you got it. You've hammered the nail right on the head. You know, a devotee is with Krishna all the time. A pure devotee, sadhu, is with Krishna all the time. So he's properly fixed and he's all the time with Krishna. So whether he's alive, he's with Krishna. And even if he dies, he's still with Krishna. So it doesn't matter for a pure devotee. You know, once Prabhupada told somebody, he was in the temple somewhere in America, and he says, I'm always in Vrindavan. He says, we are sitting here, but I'm always in Vrindavan. You see, so a devotee is always eternally in the spiritual world. Right? A sadhu is in the spiritual world. So sometimes devotees, they come from, even though we might be on the Uttamadhikar platform, even though we might, be in higher stages of devotional service, they might have prema, we might have bhava, they still come down. They still come down to the Madhyamika stage to preach. Because it's also better to give pure faith, basically to people who haven't got faith. So they come to preach like that. And so a devotee is always prepared. So we don't need to worry about death. Because death for a materialistic person, death is like Srila Prabhupada gives an example of a lion. So imagine the jaws of a lion. For another animal, you see the jaws of a lion coming at you. This is death. They are scared, right? But for a cub, like the lion's little baby, these jaws are actually shelter. They're not scared of the jaws. A baby lion is not scared of the jaws of his mama or of his daddy, It's shelter for him, we are comforting. So similarly, the devotee, he knows that even death is Krishna. Right? So a devotee, in that sense, he's prepared. He's prepared for death, So now we can think about how to become fixed in devotional service, right? Because if we are fixed in our devotional service, then we don't really need to worry about whatever happens to us. So there's a nice verse actually coming back to Gajendra, this elephant. So when he actually realized that he was done, there was no way he was going to get out, basically he was going to go. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a verse, it says, this is Gajendra, his realization. He says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is certainly not known to everyone, but is very powerful and influential. Therefore, although the serpent of eternal time, which is fearful in force, endlessly chases everyone, ready to swallow him, if one who fears this serpent seeks shelter of the Lord gives him protection, for even death runs away in fear of the Lord. I therefore surrender unto him, the great and powerful Supreme Authority, who is the actual shelter of everyone. Yeah, this is in the chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam where it talks about Gajendra. This is the last verse of that chapter. And the next chapter has got the actual prayers that he made. So eventually Gajendra, he surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? And there's an example how we need to surrender. How do we surrender, actually? It's very similar. Gajendra, he was totally powerless. There was nothing he can do. This is the consciousness. It's like he raised both his... He doesn't have arms, but for us we can raise both our arms up, right? And Draupadi was in a similar situation. In the assembly there were so many Kshatriyas, and Draupadi was getting disrobed, right? When she like for a Kshatriya, one who lives in honor dishonor is worse than death. So for Draupadi, this action of dishonor, it would be better if they killed her rather than dishonor her in the way they wanted to. Right? So this, what was happening to her, does everyone know this Leela? Do you don't know? Okay, so Draupadi was basically married to the Pandavas, and by treachery, there was like the Kurus, it's a long story, but by treachery, one part of their family stole their whole kingdom by treachery. So playing a game, basically gambling. Through gambling, they lost their whole kingdom. And then they humiliated their wife. And they said, okay, bring her in and disrobe her. You know, and then they started to disrobe her, and there were so many great personalities there. And no one said anything. So Draupadi, she looked at her husbands and she was like, please help me. She surrendered to her husbands. And they just looked down. No one could do anything to help her. And she looked at Bhishma. Bhishma was one of the great personalities. Was like a big. Actually, he couldn't find anybody. He could kill everyone there if he wanted to. He had that kind of power. But at that time, somehow, he was rendered powerless. Right? And he didn't help Draupadi either. Right? And it is said that Draupadi had one hand on her sari. So there was Dushashan who was pulling her sari to disrobe her in front of all this assembly of so many people. Right? So she had one hand on her sari and she raised one hand to the sky. And eventually she surrendered to everybody and nobody could help her. And then finally she surrendered to Krishna. So when she raised one hand and one hand, she grabbed onto her sari and she said, oh Krishna, help me, Krishna. But still Krishna didn't come. Why? Because she was still, it said like this action, she grabbed her sari, she was still attached. She was still thinking, I'm the doer. I can still do something about it, you know. But then she raised both hands and fully surrendered to Krishna. And then what happened? They kept pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling the sari, and the sari was never ending. So Krishna sent an unlimited supply of sari. So they were taking a cloth, and there were heaps and heaps of saris, but this cloth didn't come out. So Krishna saved them this way until they gave up on it, you know. So this is the kind of surrender when we say we have to surrender to Krishna. So at the time of death, this is what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to surrender to Krishna. Right? And so this is giving us an idea. So Gajendra did the same thing. In a similar way, he gave up on his family. You know, he realized all these elephants, but elephants, even though they were trying to pull him, nobody could do anything to save him. You know, no doctors could help him, no hospital could help him, science couldn't help him, you know. So, and then what happened? He surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like Draupadi with his attitude. And then what happened? Lord Vishnu came on his carrier Garuda, to send the Sudarshan Chakra, and he basically saved Gajendra, you know. And yeah, the crocodile got liberation too, by the way. So this is a really nice meditation of how we need to surrender to Krishna. So yeah, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And in regard to this matter, we are called sadhakas because we are practicing, we are doing our sadhana, we are trying to develop love for Krishna, we are trying to develop our consciousness. So at the time of death, we have the ability to think of Krishna in this way, to surrender to Krishna. And as devotees, we can also think of what we can do to achieve this state of consciousness. And to be able to surrender, like Draupadi did and like Gajendra did, right? So just in the beginning of this lecture, I also said, I mentioned that one of the reasons we don't really think about all these things, we don't really think about the purpose of life. Sometimes you think, okay, we just need to study, we find a really beautiful person, we get married, we get a job, we have some children, and then after that we raise our children, we make them do the same things that we have done, and then, we're going to go and the cycle repeats itself through our children. But is this all there is to life? There's got to be something more, right? So when we think about it, when we have some time to think a little bit outside of the box, then we realize, okay, the universe is really big, and we're not alone in this universe. And then we start to become spiritually inclined, and we become inquisitive. And for all of us here, we're already quite advanced, it's not the first time we're coming here. We're actually wanting to progress in our spiritual life. And Prabhupada gave us a perfect formula to do that. Right? So if you go to an ISKCON temple, many of you know this already, but all the monks, they basically wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or even before 4 o'clock. That's the first thing we would do, and then we take a shower, we get ready, and then we go to the temple, and then the deities would wake up, the pujaris would wake up the deities, so we go to greet the deities, and there's a whole program. So we would do pay our respects to the Guru. I think Shresh Prabhu is still doing the morning program. So Vasishesh Prabhu is still doing this morning program. So if anyone would like to have an experience of that, Prabhupada said this is the ABCD of spiritual life, right? So because in this morning program, he carefully designed this morning program. So everything that needs to be done is being done in this morning program. So we pay respects to the spiritual master, because the spiritual master is giving us knowledge. So in the morning we go sing Samsarada, and we pay respect to all the acharyas, we pay respect to the spiritual master, and then we pay respect to the deity, so we see the beautiful form of the Lord, because Krishna has a form. We can chant the name of Krishna and we can see his form as well. Right? So that's something to meditate on. We can engage all our senses on Krishna. Like there was Ambarish Maharaj, he also engaged all his senses on Krishna. So with his eyes he would look at the deity, right? With his ears he would hear the holy name. With his tongue he would eat prasadam. And eventually, I think we have time to go through that. Yeah, we can go through that. So Ambarish Maharaj was a devotee, right? So he was fully engaged, all his senses was engaged in worshipping the Lord. And once, Durvasa Muni came to visit him. Does anyone know Durvasa Muni? Durvasa Muni is a sage. And he is one of the sages where if you ever see him, you could maybe think of turning the other way around. Because he's one of the sages who dishes out curses like anything. He's the one who gave curses, the most curses in the history, that we hear of. But Durvasa Muni came to visit him, and Ambarish Maharaj, he was, just to cut a long story short, but he was basically fasting. So he was fasting and he was about to break his fast. And everybody knows, even if we stay fasting for Ekadashi, the next day we have to break our fast. There's a particular time and there's a particular way to do it. And Ambarish Maharaj, he was going to do that, and Durvasa Muni came and he said, okay, he needs to be served prasadam. So Ambarish Maharaj was thinking, he's done this yaga for a whole year, and if he doesn't break his fast, all this time he spent doing it will go to waste. Right? So he thought, okay, let me just drink a little bit of water. Because basically drinking a bit of water, it's considered that I will break my fast, but at the same time it's considered that I haven't broken my fast, you know? Because it's also an offense. Like Durvasa Muni took offense if you eat before him, you know? Because you've got to serve him first before you eat. That's like one of the etiquettes. And anyways, he got really mad at Ambarish Maharaj, and he just invoked like a demon, you know, to kill Ambarish Maharaj. But Ambarish Maharaj, because he was properly situated, because he was a devotee of Krishna, Krishna came to his rescue. Personally he sent the Sudarshan Chakra. So the Sudarshan Chakra came and just cut this demon in pieces, and then started to go after Durvasa Muni. So Durvasa Muni had to run, you know. He ran all the way. And he ran all the way to all the way because he went to all his planets, Shiva, Brahma, and asked for help. No one could help him. Eventually he went to Vishnu. And Vishnu says, there's nothing I can do for you because my heart belongs to my devotee. So my heart is with him. You know? So he told Vishnu, you know, feel some compassion. He said, my heart is with my devotee. So if you go and ask for forgiveness from my devotee, you know. So then he had to go, and Ambarish Maharaj forgave him. So then that's a nice lesson. You see, so if we're properly situated, but when we think, you know, we need to basically spend some time, right? So what can we do to get time? To engage in this, to follow instructions like Srila Prabhupada gave us. Like I was just talking before about the morning program, right? So we would do the morning program, and then we would chant 16 rounds in the morning, right? After chanting the 16 rounds, then there's a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture. Normally, so just in that morning program, you know, we have done all the activities that need to be done, right? Because there's also the Panchanga of devotional service. Like Chaitanya Prabhu is not here, but he calls it the A, B, C, D, E of spiritual life. Yeah, so what does A stand for? Association of devotees. So if we want to progress in our spiritual life, if we want to develop bhakti, this is what we need to do. A is association of devotees. I was going to say B. What? Books. B is books or Bhagavatam. So we need to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. We need to listen to lectures from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And what is C? Chanting the holy name of the Lord. So we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this is the Yuga Dharma. Because without this chanting of the holy name of the Lord, all the other devotional activities that we do, they are not fully complete. It's only by the chanting of the holy name then they become complete. Yeah, so that's C, and then D. Deity. D is deity worship. Right? So we this is one of the Panchanga of devotional service as well. So we see the form of the Lord, we worship the deity, and a nice meditation of a deity is because sometimes we are quite impersonal, right? We don't think that Krishna has got a form, but when we do deity worship, it's actually also training about what we would do in the spiritual world, actually. So if you think about how we worship the deity, in the morning we wake the deities up, and then what do? We give them some food. You know, if we're the servants of Krishna, that's what how would we serve Krishna? we would bring some food for him, and then we light some incense, we give the deity something nice to smell, right? And then we give them flowers. So all these activities, it's not just, what's the word? Yeah, it's not just something cultural or something ritualistic. Yeah, it's not just a ritual. It's something in the beginning, it might be something you do because the spiritual master or the devotees gave you instructions to do this, but eventually when you keep doing it, you come to that state of consciousness where, I'm serving Krishna and it's going to be done different in the spiritual world. So D is deity worship, which is really nice. And then what is E? D? D for diet. Prashadam. Do you want to say a little bit more about it?
Yeah, we'll be serving prasadam after the program.
So everybody take prashadam, right? Yeah, so that's another one for D. And then what about E? Eating. No, E is environment. E is environment. So environment, in other words, it means we have to visit holy places of worship. So we have to go to the Holy Dham, we have to go to Vrindavan, we have to go to Mayapur, and I don't know if I can remember the Sanskrit correctly, but maybe someone can help me. The Panchanga of devotional service, so we have Guna, Rupa, Lila, Nam. What's the fifth one? Bhagavat. Bhagavat Shravan, yeah. So these are, and Guna, Rupa, Guna means Lila, right? So it means Lila. So when we go to the Dham, we hear about the Lila of the Lord. So because these are coming from the Holy Dham, right? And association of devotees is very important as well. Because this is how we learn about Krishna, and this is how we develop our faith. So, and it's in this endeavor, there's also no loss and or diminution. So whatever little bit we can do, we are all benefiting. There's no loss in this endeavor. This is Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 14. So whatever little bit we can do, even if we can't do, I don't know how many, would anyone like to share their practice? How many are chanting on japa every day? Okay, so some of us are yet to start. So how many read a little bit every day from the books of Krishna? How many come to the temple? Like all of you came to the temple. So how many think that this is a very positive thing that we're doing? Yeah, everyone thinks it's a positive thing, so that's still very favorable. How many like the atmosphere when we come to the temple? Yeah, it's still something in this endeavor. There's no loss and there's no diminution. So even by chanting the holy name, there's lots of benefits. So, but I don't think I should go into this because I already feel I spoke a lot, and maybe it's time. Maybe you can share a little bit, share some reflections, or if there's any questions, or if there's anything I missed out, maybe by giving this lecture, by going through this particular verse, maybe there's something important that I should have said and I didn't say. So this can be, we can mention that as well. Yes. Okay. So the pain of death is equal to 17,000 scorpions around. Yeah, this is said in the scriptures actually. When the soul leaves the body, this is the kind of pain we feel. But again, this does not necessarily apply for devotees, because for devotees we are confident we can take shelter of God, we can take shelter of Krishna. So, yeah, thank you for saying this. And anyone else? Yes, Rina.
I just want to share, because talking about the time of death.
Do you want
I work in the hospital.
Do you want
and
to-
I have this, yeah, I just want to share some reflection now, like you were talking about the topic of death. Yeah, I have witnessed many deaths since I worked in the hospital, and trust me, I have seen devotees as well, and I have seen non-devotees. And when Prabhupada explained that at the time of death there is Yamadut, the servant of Yamraj coming to take you away. So I have witnessed that people, how they can see things at the time of death, really. They can see horrible things. They are talking and saying loudly, oh, this is coming for me. Oh, this one is, oh, no, there is needles, there is blood, there is sin. Don't prick me. Oh, stop it. Don't take me away, please. And they were hitting or whatever. And then after a little while, they just go. So, me as a devotee, I can say that I understand what they can see. But maybe some people will not know, say, oh, what's happening here. So, honestly, thank you for that lecture. I think really all of us should take shelter to Krishna, so that we can see, like, not this young dude coming for us, Vishnu dude coming, and Krishna has promised that Vishnu dude, they are very beautiful, and there is no scare for any devotee. So that's all I have to share.
Thank you for sharing this. Yes, Gopal.
No, just when people ask that it's not fair, sometimes when we're about to die, we might forget about Krishna, but if our life was engaged fully for Krishna service, Krishna will never forget us.
Yes.
And it's the most important, because sometimes we can say, oh, it's not fair, or sometimes we say, how can it happen to this devotee, those devotee? Like, for example, one of my friends, she's my age, she just passed away 2 days ago, really good friend of mine, and she died in such a stupid way. You might think, gosh, how can it be? Like, she was just like on Zoom class, she was give class to one baby, and this child, he just seen that she fall down, and she started like some do noise like ooh, and that's it, and no one knew where she lives. Anyway, she died. Okay, and you might think, oh my goodness, so what kind of consciousness she had during this time? Because she was like teaching some child like English or something like that, or she was a very professional musician. But if we think how she lived her life, she was engaged always in Krishna service, because she always was doing kirtan, like she was playing, I don't know how it's called in English, like violin, skripka. Skripka is, how skripka, you know?
Violin.
Violin, yeah? Спасибо. Yeah, like that. And another example came to my head. You remember during the COVID time, we lost one of our greatest spiritual master, Bhakti Maharaj. And if you might think how he did this, was he surrounded with devotees? No, he was alone, because at that time no one was allowed to be next to him. So I was listening, the memory in Mayapur. It was for a few days, and also we lost another spiritual master, but you don't know him because he's he's from Ukraine, Russian-speaking devotee, greatest devotees, disciple of Guru Maharaj, also sannyasi. And also he died in the same way. And can we say that they was alone, they was in such a strange, like in hospital, surrounded with this doctors, no one know about Krishna, and even Bhakti Charu, all of a sudden he made decision just to leave Dham. Yeah, like he could pass away in Vrindavan and Mayapur, but he chose to go some America. No, but if you think how they live their life, so we can be sure that Krishna never ever forgets his devotee during the time when they about to leave the body. So all what I say, yes, true. It's very important, but it's more important how we live our life.
Yeah. And not only that, thank you for this, Gopal, thank you for sharing that. And not only that, even Krishna is so merciful, even if we call his name, even if we were not practicing, even if we were not able to do all the devotional service or go to a temple and wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and do all these things. This is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have an example of Ajamil. So Ajamil, he was actually, he was a sinner, right? He was living a sinful life. And all he did was he named his son Narayan, which is one of the names of God. And at the time of death, when he was dying, he called his son. And he didn't even think about God. He didn't even think about God, he just called Narayan! He was calling his son, you know? And he said at the time of death, there is, my Vrinda mentioned this, there's Yamadutas and there's Vishnudutas. So those who are going to the heavenly planets, they go with the Vishnudutas, and those who are going to the hellish planets, they go with Yamadutas coming to pick them up. And then when this happened with Ajamil, so because he was a sinful person, the Yamadutas came. They were like ugly demons and they came to take his soul. But then the Vishnudutas came as well. And then there was a conflict. They were both fighting who's going to take him. And eventually the Vishnudutas took him. He got liberation, he went to the kingdom of God just because he chanted the name of Krishna. He got liberated. So Krishna is so merciful. Whatever little action we're doing for Krishna, it's never going to go in vain. Yes.
I just forgot to say something because Vrinda said, and it came to my mind as well, about how we live our life. I had experience only once in my life. I was with my mom when she was dying, so I spent with her whole months, like from beginning till I lost her brief, so I was making preparation, other stuff. And my mom, she was very artistic person, very artistic. And she could do anything, but most the time she was knitting. It was her job, her hobby, her passion, everything. And I do remember when she already could not understand what's going on, she was like half here, half there. Like her heart was so strong, still was working, body was here, but I don't know where she was. And what's the interesting things, because I was always with her, you know what she was doing? You cannot imagine. I don't remember, she took her hand and she started to do like this. But she couldn't say anything, like you could talk to her, but she was not here. But her hand was knitting. And then I still asked, Mom, what are you doing? Sometimes she could reply, and she said, I'm knitting. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I was totally shocked. Of course, everything ended for her very nice, right? Because Srila Prabhupada was there, deity, Tulsi, so many blessings, so many devotees, Simhadev, Krishna Balaram. But still, I was totally shocked because I could see what Bhagavatam say, and I could experience it. It's true actually.
So we are very fortunate, we have all this knowledge and all these details. I mean, for those who don't have a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam, you can ask from the temple and get a copy. It's a set of books. It's got all this knowledge. It even gives a description of, it says people who are too attached to their bodies and at the time of death, or people who commit suicide, they actually they become ghosts. Not to scare anybody. Yes.
They stay ghosts forever. It's just a limited time they're ghosts for. People get suicide, you said they become ghosts.
Yes.
Is it forever? Or not?
Forever or not? He stayed forever with the ghost or not?
Oh, the ghost.
Yeah.
Are they ghosts forever?
different goals for it.
No,
No,
until at the age when
So basically, we have a gross body, which I was saying, made of 5 elements, which is water, air, fire, ether, and then we have a subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, force, ego, and then we've got the jiva, which is the soul, right? So what happens, the jiva, when you go to the spiritual world, the jiva goes to the spiritual world. So the first body, the gross body, is considered the material body, and then you got the subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and force, ego, right? So this is the body of a ghost. So a ghost, he doesn't have a gross body, but he's still got a mind, he's still got the intelligence, and he's still got a false ego. So which means he still wants to enjoy, he still wants to, you know, he still wants to enjoy all this thing, but he cannot do it because he hasn't got a physical body to do it. So then all we can do is create disturbances like that. Yeah, yes, we wanted.
I didn't actually listen correctly, but the soul, you're saying it is its mind, personality, and thought, which is the ghost. The soul is embedded in this.
Yes. So it's engrossed in 2 bodies, you know. So actually we are prisoners basically. The soul is not a prisoner, but it's engaged in several layers, right? So one layer is the material world itself, where we're in. Like the second layer is the subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And then the third layer is the gross body, which is made of 5 material elements. Like that. Yes?
Yeah, should one end up being a ghost, with the length of time that one is in that ghostly position, is that dependent on one's karma?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. But, sorry, but I don't know. But it's a really good question because we were talking about this. I was speaking to my wife about this the other day, and I was wanting to find an answer myself. Because initially I thought maybe it's the initial span of life. I think, okay, if someone is meant to live like 100 years old, then, you know, the ghost will leave after 100 years. You know, my wife was saying, no, it's not like that. It's not like that. You know, the ghost it can be punished for a longer time. But then what we found out was definitely concrete about it. We have Shiva. What is the other name of Shiva? Ashutosh and then Bhutana. So Shiva is very compassionate to the ghosts. And he takes these ghosts and he basically gives them shelter.
Yeah.
He basically gives them shelter and liberates them. So this is I know this is one of his service, but I don't know exactly how many.
What is the question?
Yes.
No.
He's asking if a ghost, how many years does a ghost stay as a ghost? Does he stay forever or does he
It
stay?
depends on the lifespan it was supposed to survive. And on top of it, the punishment.
Yes.
So it's not that.
Yes.
When you like, 'cause we have a concept of time in
Yeah.
this area where we are, is, you know, the clock that we use and the
Yeah.
calendar that we have, but when you move across, then what the concept of time is?
Well, it's actually different. The concept of time is different. I haven't got the exact figures, but one day of Brahma, can anyone remember how many years is one day of Brahma?
1,000 Mahayugas. So 1,000 Mahayuga is 1 month.
1,000 Mahayuga. It's basically, it's a really huge number, you know. So this is one day. But one thing we can relate to, right? The way we can relate to it is, if you think about a mosquito, it's got a lifespan of 24 hours. So in that 24 hours, it's already completed its whole life. That's a cycle. So the fact 24 hours for us, it's different. But for that mosquito, it's different, right? Like if you think about even a dog, it lives only like 14 years, some live 20 years, but for them it's a full life, you know. So their concept of time it's equivalent of 80 human years or 100 human years, right? So even with human years, if we go to the planet of the demigods they live for thousands and thousands of years.
I can say the
Yes.
according to Prabhupada's purport, it's 311 trillion and 40 billion Earth years.
Yeah, so that's one day of Brahma. It's so many years. You see. So even though we think, our life here on earth and all these things, it's actually said it's only a glimpse. Like in the spiritual world, it's basically like we just lost consciousness for a fraction of a second, and we just came here, we're living this dream, and then we're going back, So it's like that. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, because kind of my experience is like in a dream, you can dream that you're doing something for months and then you wake up and it's been like 20 minutes into that check.
20
Yeah,
minutes,
so I'll
yes.
get that,
Yeah. It's also that conception, like there's a particular time when the soul between death and rebirth, between death and birth, there's things that happen to the soul, right? And it's the same concept of time. So what actually birth and death, it might happen really quickly, but then within that particular fraction of time between birth and death, there's a whole lot that can happen there.
Thank you.
Thanks. Brahma is 1 year. Yeah, we have to look at this actually. That's going to be a big calculation. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
So just a reflection. I was listening to one of the Maharaj thing, and since you describe about the state of mind, means the consciousness, so they say that it's like one of the lectures I heard is the collective focus of your mind, intelligence and false ego is your state of mind or state of consciousness, and one can actually evaluate themselves on day-to-day basis, like when they're about to fall asleep, what's the state of conscious they are. So if you are really Krishna consciousness, what we dream is about Krishna consciousness. So if you are not thinking about Krishna, then we dream something else. So what Maharaj was saying is, so death is similar, that we are about to fall asleep and we know that we are going to fall asleep. Can we capture our mind, false ego and intelligence on Krishna and start dreaming about Krishna? The only difference is we have the pain of the body and detachments. So if we really want to test ourselves, how many times we dream about Krishna, or at least when you're trying to fall asleep, when you know that you're going to fall asleep, are we able to capture our mind and think about Krishna? So this is a test.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu, for sharing this. It also reminded me that Srila Prabhupada also said we should read Krishna book before going to bed, right? So this indeed helps as well. But thank you everyone, I think we should probably end here 5 o'clock. And yeah, apologies if, I haven't really met your expectations or anything like that, but
Do we get our money back?
but I think it's been a nice conversation, and if there's anything we can look into it after, together. And yeah, by the way, we also have this reading group on Saturday, so if anyone is interested to join, please contact Bhashishesh Prabhu. And if anyone is interested in what the topics we spoke today and even more, you can get a set of Srimad Bhagavatam, which you can contact Chaitanya Bhava Prabhu from. Haribol. Haribol. Shri Shri Panchatattva ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.